The New York Times just publishing an op-ed written by what it says is an anonymous senior official within the Trump administration. The story is titled, "I am part of the resistance inside the Trump administration." And the anonymous author says, quote, "I work for the president, but like-minded colleagues and I have vowed to thwart parts of his agenda and his worst inclinations." Let's bring in Chris Whipple, author of The Gatekeepers, How the White House Chiefs of Staff Define Every Presidency. Have we ever seen anything like this, Chris?
No, it's absolutely extraordinary and unprecedented in my mind. I can't think of anything quite like this. And, you know, the only thing that would be even remotely comparable, it seems to me, would be during the darkest days of the Nixon administration when Al Haig, the Chief of Staff, and James Schlesinger, the Secretary of Defense, took care to make sure that any military commands that were issued by Richard Nixon, who at that point was walking the West Wing corridors and talking to the oil portraits and obviously a desperate man, when they took precautions to make sure that no military orders would be given that didn't go through them. But you know, this kind of defiance by an anonymous high-ranking staffer is pretty extraordinary.
Chris, the president has faced many attacks since he took office, including very often from the New York Times. How much further does this go to hit his, whether it's credibility or his ability to continue operating?
Well, again, I don't want to play armchair psychoanalyst, but anybody who knows, who's been following this White House for any period of time, knows that this kind of thing is really the sort of thing that might just completely drive him crazy. It certainly seems like the kind of thing that would just make him furious, and I would think that he'd be barking out orders to John Kelly and everybody else to find out who this person is.
I mean, extraordinary, yes, Chris, but is it consequential at all?
Well, yes, I think it could be. It could be extremely consequential. I think that we've all wondered for a year and a half now whether there was, in fact, a grown-up in the room or a group of grown-ups who felt that they were the thin line between the president and disaster. And so, this sort of confirms, if true, this confirms that there's at least one very high-ranking official who believes that, and maybe more.
Well, we don't know how high-ranking, I guess, at this stage. To what extent, Chris, having written a book as you have on the importance of the chief of staffs within the White House, do you feel this individual, instead of doing this anonymous article, should instead come out, resign, and be public about their attacks, as opposed to anonymous and a sort of attacking the team they're a member of from within?
Well, it's extraordinary. There's no question about it, and you could certainly make that argument. But I suppose that this official would probably counter with the argument that he believes or she believes that this person is, again, as I say, a thin line between the president and disaster. And it's often been speculated about John Kelly and others, whether or not they feel that they are there to make sure that, we're not in harm's way, that they may be saving the president from himself. Now, Kelly, of course, denies that publicly, but there are others who think that there are high-ranking officials in the Trump White House who believe in duty, honor, country, and that they stand between the president and rash decisions.
Yeah, Chris, I mean, to that point, I mean, on the one hand, you might say that it's supposed to be a reassuring message, perhaps, to some people who don't necessarily agree with some of the things the president wants to do. On the other hand, the cynical view is that ultimately, perhaps the identity of this person will be revealed at that person's choosing, and it will preserve some kind of life after the Trump administration if, in fact, they fear that career-wise there's going to be some kind of a taint there.
Well, I suppose that's possible. I mean, it's possible to look at this from so many different angles and to psychoanalyze this unidentified author. But I think that that's probably a fool's errand at this point. I mean, it's hard to hard to guess what the actual motivations might be. Might it be that cynical that this is someone trying to distance him or herself from the Trump administration, after this presidency is over? I don't know. But one thing is for sure, it's absolutely unprecedented as far as I know.